Hey everyone, Stefan Burns here. You're about to see the question and answer for the Conscious Connections event that we held on the new moon, May 16th, 2026. Yahoo! It was amazing. I did not have a third microphone for the questionnaires, so I had to enhance the audio using gaining and clipping and stuff. So I apologize about the audio, but the questions are very interesting. Dana and I bounced back and forth with these questions. We're talking biophotons and plasma and the structure of reality and a whole bunch of crazy things. So I definitely recommend that you activate the captions so you can read the questions when they come across, but also just to kind of listen and to expand into this event because it was quite fun. And we had an amazing time at Conscious Connections. We are going to be doing more of these once I recover my voice. So thank you all so much for supporting, for being a part of this community in the way that you are. Namaste, God bless, and enjoy the question and answer with Dana, Kippel, and myself, Stefan Burns.
And no one be shy, but you can ask from your seat if you need to. Okay.
We should have two mics.
We don't. They changed it.
Oh, really?
Okay. Yeah, I'll just get back.
Hi, Dana.
Hi.
Dana, Dana.
Dana.
So just for clarity purposes, can I ask, are you able to clearly define the difference between physical plasma, non-physical, and plasmoid?
Yes.
Because you're saying so much and it's all so interesting.
I know,
and I just want to have that foundational definition so I can understand better.
Yes, great question. Great question. So physical plasma is, we have blood plasma and then there's space plasma or astronomical plasma. These are physical, they are material. In science, you know, they can study them. They're observable, they're in material reality. But still, plasma has a lot of funky things that science hasn't even figured out. But it's basically anything that is materially observable by the tools that we have right now, right? Like, you know, lightning, aurora borealis, it's not like it's invisible. Then non-physical plasma is basically anything that is not provable right now by science. It is not observable. We cannot, you know, use machines to rate it or figure it out. It is, just think of it as like if plasma is like the finest substance of reality, right? Like when the Big Bang happened, the first thing that was after the Big Bang was quark gluon plasma. So obviously our visible reality is made up of 99.9% plasma. So think of it as above, so below. So our invisible reality is made up of 99.9% invisible plasma. So think of it as the pixels that make up your dreams. So how do we have visions? There has to be some kind of pixel there, right? There has to be some kind of quasi-material that makes it up. So plasma basically just makes up, just at a finer level that we cannot prove yet, but I think one day we will, it makes up the pixels of our reality. And then just like an ocean, it comes in different gradients, right? So there's that more subtle plasma layer that surrounds us in bubbles, just like an ocean is bubbles. And then there's that finer layer that, you know, is where our higher selves are, right? And I don't know how to explain how I know this or why I think this. It's just the way I see it. And then, a plasmoid is just a bubble in the ocean. It is that subtle plasma. But plasmoids in science are actual physical plasmoids. Those are made of physical plasma, where plasmoids in metaphysical science are just the same thing, but they're invisible, but they're like felt. And I think one day we will be able to see them. And we can kind of almost see it already when there's new studies where we can see the biophotons, our aura now. That think of our plasma field as just giving out that aura the same way the aurora borealis is a plasma effect. Hopefully that answers some of it. But it's something you feel.
No.
It's if you have another question, you can ask me, especially if you've never heard of this before. A plasmoid. So in science, it's a magnetic entity, a plasma magnetic entity. So it is just literally physical plasma. It would be like ball lightning or just a literal plasmoid. So like when there are sometimes sun flares.
Yeah, do you want me to take this?
Yeah, do you want to take the science part? He knows a lot about the plasma science, so hold on.
Yeah. So I guess we'll say it's a physical plasmoid.
Yeah.
A plasma is matter that's very highly charged, and as a result, it now obeys the force of electromagnetism versus gravity. And there's the strong and weak nuclear forces, but we can kind of ignore them for this conversation.
So positive, negative charge carriers, they can arrange themselves in very unique ways. And a plasmoid forms this internal coherent structure that doesn't readily dissipate. It has this, plasma is unique, as you described with some of your lecture slides, is that it is able to maintain coherence, even though you would think that processes would just kind of cast it aside and just have it just fling out and decharge and entropy exist. So a plasmoid usually will have a double layer, and there's these hot and cold layers to it, where you can have the superheated plasma, but then you can have a lower charge state that's still charged, positive, negative. Yeah, it's like a sheath.
Yeah.
But you have these distinct zones in between them that allow it to maintain this coherent structure. We're still learning a lot, but when they did a lot of, and they do, but these laboratory plasma experiments, they often don't behave the way they would expect. And there's also been a lot of in situ space observations of plasmas as some satellite probe is going out, for example, and it encounters a plasmoid in the solar wind. Or there's plasmoids in Jupiter's magnetosphere, and there's these self-contained bundles of plasma. We get hit by plasmoids all the time. And they also have sometimes weird abilities to move. Like, we've had solar storms that have launched off very clearly not Earth directed, but then there was some other structure that was Earth directed that was weak, and somehow, I can't explain, but somehow the strength of this storm routed along different lines than we'd expect, and what came in, and like, oh, it's going to be a minor storm, becomes like a strong storm.
They're unpredictable.
So there's this ability for it to move and transfer, but it's not necessarily like water. If you vision water, it's a little different than that, because it's almost like the whole thing is just going like this, whereas water is like a trickle or a river or a stream. It maintains its coherency, but
and they can move collectively. It's called self-organization. But I wrote like a 700-page book about it because it's so much and it's so hard to say in a sentence.
And they can be tiny to big, so it's all fractal too. You can have a ball lightning plasma like this, or a plasmoid many times the size of the Earth.
And basically what I'm saying is the way those act in science is if we're in a plasmoid, we could be like, oh my God, this, and this is how it works. Like, that's how our energy field works in ways we've never learned about our energy field before, because no one's really connected those two. Do you want to ask the second question?
No, we need to give everyone a chance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I found both of you separately, and then you interviewed her January 1st. Oh. And it was such a great interview. Anyone hasn't seen it, I recommend it. I actually had a question about biophotons, but the conversation you guys just had brought up my thoughts around orbs.
Oh, yeah.
Metaphysical, ethereal plasmoids?
Yes. I mean, the orbs are actually physical plasma. Yeah.
Are we seeing through?
Well, sometimes plasma is visible and sometimes it's not. And it can also move through materials, which is really interesting. So like with the earthquake lightning example, it's not like the plasma has a distinct cavity down in the earth and it's just hanging out there. It just suddenly, these charge carriers can coalesce and then shoot up. And there's observations of plasmoids going through walls and everything. And the conversation with plasma and photons is really interesting, but.
Yes, so in the orb thing, yeah, because Chris Bledsoe even calls them plasma when he sees the orbs. They are actual plasma, and most of the UAPs the government observes are plasma, and this is in the secret files and all of those things. So yes, those are plasma, and basically what is happening is, I wouldn't say those plasma orbs we're seeing are conscious. There's 3 different levels. They're either one, which is ball lightning, which is a natural phenomena, right? And it's hard to answer this, I'm gonna keep this a minute long. And then there are plasmoids that are not conscious, and they are also natural phenomena. And then we have plasmoids now that higher dimensional entities can come through. I wouldn't say they're in there. I would say they're almost like remote viewing us through those, or it creates some type of wormhole. But there's 2 weird things. Number one, when there are solar flares, there's this book by Kevin Can that has mashed up almost every plasma event with plasmoid sightings. Because guess what? They create plasmoids, right? They create orbs. And that doesn't mean UFOs aren't real, though. What happens is these plasmoids come and they almost become these interdimensional telephones and create these like rips in space-time for these higher dimensional entities to come through. Yeah, portals, same thing, yeah. But it's very interesting because like it's a mixture of both. But either way, plasma has these really crazy higher dimensional properties. And if you look deep into mathematics and physics, there are papers that I've found that I'm writing about in my next book as well, where they literally have to make extra dimensions to explain what's happening in the plasma and plasma sheets. Like they cannot explain them with math or physics. So yeah, it's really, yeah.
Did you biophotons, or we're good?
Can I do it or not?
Well, just the one thought I'll just say there is that what's interesting is we don't often see the plasma because it's not emitting a photon at like visible wavelength. Sometimes it does, oftentimes it's not. And there's also certain frequencies. There's an internal frequency to a plasmoid. This is measurable. And you won't see any frequencies usually that are lower than that. So if it has like a 4 megahertz frequency, it only emits at 4 megahertz and above. So it's internally very consistent and not having like this radiation that's below these frequencies, but they can take on all these different frequency structures from what I've researched.
Are you referencing biophotons?
So a biophoton is just the same as a normal photon. It's just generated by our body. So we have a little bit of plasma within us, and we just have to kind of believe that. I've done some biofield tuning where you manipulate that and everything. Sometimes you can see it, but often you basically never see the thing. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And so there's this connection between us where photons are able to connect to different plasmas and exchange that energy and information. And it's this interesting connection that they have because you were talking about plasma having memory and everything, because from a photon's perspective, there's no time delay between going from one to the other. So it's all instantaneous at that level of reality, whereas for us, there's a whole delay to it all. But from the plasma or the photon perspective, then it's all like simultaneous connection.
Did you have a specific question about biophotons?
About biophotons?
Yeah.
What I was going to ask is biophotons, information, or light carries information.
Yeah.
So biophotons of light in the physical body, that's the ionic gas in the physical body, right?
Biophotons are different than plasma, yeah.
They're different.
Yes.
I believe that biophotons organize everything in the physical body.
That would make sense.
We can, change what's going on in the physical, in our physical reality and stuff like that. What's your thought on that?
The way I would affirm that, in my opinion, is that just like electromagnetic wave-shaped plasma, which are, photons are part of the electromagnetic spectrum, right? Carry light, all that stuff. Biophotons carry consciousness. So what is the active principle? The divine masculine. Plasma is the divine feminine. Consciousness. Biophotons are carrying that consciousness, somehow shaping the plasma, the bioplasma, right? Bioplasma, biophoton. So that to me would make sense. It's just showing how that works. So yes, love it. Thank you.
Okay, my name's Denise. I was just wondering about when we have the solar flares or the plasma that comes off the sun, how does that affect us? And how does all this stuff with plasma affect us internally, both positively, and are there negative effects also?
I'll let you, do you want me to get that?
Sure. Well, that's kind of a tough question. I mean, what we know is that it really connects to the heart system. That's where the main magnetic field of the body is generated. It's about 100 nanotesla in strength. And so like more infarctions and arrhythmias. And, we've actually had 2 big X-class flares on the far side of the sun over the past 48 hours. And we had a G2 storm, which is a moderate geostorm, just 24 hours ago as well, lining up with that. And we were both noticing that the energy was kind of weird this morning.
Yeah, our chests.
Yeah, so it connects in that way, and in general, it introduces more noise and chaos into the system. But chaos isn't necessarily bad, it's just an order beyond our understanding. So our job, I would say, was to learn how to make that coherent again. We need to get back to homeostasis, but if we're only ever in homeostasis, then we get really weak and soft. So it's kind of one of these forces that guide us there. But you have the actual light photons from the flare hitting Earth 8.3 minutes later. That can ionize the atmosphere, and that can perhaps, if you're really connected in for some reason, whatever that may be, maybe viscerally feel that. I mean, I know because so many people comment on this that there has to be something here. It's undeniable. The bigger effects is when you actually had the plasma storm come in like 3 days later. And now you're having these big magnetic fluctuations. The ionosphere is supercharged up now. You have the aurora in the northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, the polar regions. That energy will actually equalize down to the poles to some degree, the equator to some degree. So it's this whole energy storm that occurs. It's also now inducing currents in the ground surface, and all our biologic signals are connected to these fields. You have telluric currents that are flowing underneath. These guide diurnal rhythms. The Schumann resonance connects to all these things. It guides diurnal rhythms. The heart connects to the geomagnetic field. That guides these circadian rhythms. And so when all those are thrown off, it just triggers, it seems, a pretty basic stress response. And then now you're getting at the hormone level, your endocrine system saying, hey, you're pumping a bunch of cortisol and now you feel like crap. And if you have other issues, then that can cause problems. But if you've built out some of this machinery, then for me, for example, like we walked like 20,000 steps yesterday. She's like, my legs are sore now.
They are.
So we were like really active. We had the energy to do a lot yesterday, even though it was like this crazy storm.
I'm wondering if it gave more power.
Can I share something when you're done?
Yeah.
Because of that, or if it was.
Absolutely. I think that's where well, you have to listen to your body. Like when it's time to like take a nap. That's what I believe. But I think you can also reformat your expectation. And one thing I do see, which is not productive, is tracking it so closely that you see the solar flare and now you've programmed yourself to think this is not going to help. I'm now going to feel terrible, and then you do. So the best thing would be to, okay, well, I know now I need to eat clean. Like I should be eating really good. I'll cut out the coffee, let me go on a walk, and then let's evaluate how I feel. And you may actually find yourself feeling great. So.
I want to share one thing too, of course. So also, if plasma carries consciousness, right? Every solar flare is light coming here carried by plasma. So I remember we're in bubbles, right? We're in plasma bubbles. So there's a thing called min-max theory, where a bubble, every time bubbles take in stress. And what is stress? Stress is information. So every solar flare, it is raising, I know it sounds a little out there, but it's raising our consciousness. The information is coming, and it's always good. It's always benevolent. What is not is the fact that we don't know how to, as bubbles, right? We're taking on too much water, and if we don't wring ourselves out and do embodiment and walking, the information we take in is going to get all crazy, and we'll make projections, and we feel stressed and tense and have heart palpitations. So it's really, once again, being in touch with your body, and embodiment is number one, and understanding, oh, there's information here, like what, and I think it's individual, that's just my opinion, what information is for your highest good in that moment, and maybe you can use solar flares to connect more with that. And then he can tell you guys when they happen. So you can do that ritual.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I was wondering if you could sort of think of physical matter as maybe crystallized plasma,
I do.
because the electrons are suddenly choosing where they want to be.
Yeah.
But I was just wondering, because it didn't really specify.
Yeah. Do you want to say anything else, or that was it? No, I love that. I literally made a video last year on how physical matter is crystallized plasma. Yeah, so it's basically like I've never actually done psychedelics, but anyone who's done like acid or anything, like some people will see the crystal right beyond the veil, that shimmering.
Yeah, that's through, been there, seeing basically it was what it appeared to me as, it was the single electron that superpositions itself to create all of reality.
So there's something called one electron theory, where they actually say our whole universe is an electron, right? And I would say it's a plasmoid. An electron is a plasmoid. They actually said that back in the early 1900s.
Saying an electron is contained, makes the plasma makes the electron.
The plasma makes the electron.
That
I would say, I don't know. I would say electrons are almost like the way plasma communicates between dimensions. So electrons are like wormholes. And the other side of an electron is almost like how we get to that more higher dimensional state. And yeah, at its core, yes, physical matter is like crystallized plasma. If you think about it, it's like a crystal TV or like quilt, and then all of us project our own beliefs and thoughts and stuff onto reality, which creates what we see. And then there's, of course, a collective one, right? So it's like fluid. So we have this agreed upon reality, which is why when all of us change our beliefs, we could actually co-create a different reality. But yeah, crystallized plasma. Yes, thank you. I love that.
And the one follow-up to that is that it's light that is the bridge, because if you were to blast anything with enough gamma rays, it becomes a plasma. So any matter can become a plasma just simply through the absorption of photons.
Yeah.
It just depends on the frequency of that.
You need both. You need masculine and feminine. You need light and plasma, right? Consciousness and plasma. It's not one or the other, but the problem is most of society, I love humans, I'm not a feminist, but it's been more masculine centered. Oh, consciousness, consciousness, consciousness. But what about our feminine side of consciousness and plasma, and how they're created, reality is created with both of them, which creates the divine child, or, you know, matter. So, yeah.
Boom shakalaka.
Yeah.
First of all, I just want to say thank you for responding to Spirit for putting this event on. I think a lot of people here could associate with being like, they were all here for a reason.
Bonfire.
So,
It was his idea first. I've wanted to do it for so long, but we can thank him more. I'll give him a little bit more.
You can thank the giant catfish in my dream.
Okay. Well, thank his catfish dream. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you for responding to Spirit.
Yes.
Appreciate it. On that topic, sometimes when I'm getting spiritual downloads for like days or weeks, life looks like a pop-up book to me. Like things jump off the page. It almost looks like heat waves on the ground when it's really hot outside. Things just look different. And then in moments where those words, patterns, numbers, whatever come together in like a convergence, it's like time and space slows down, and it's almost like there's a ripple. And it reminds me of like some of the scenes in the Matrix where like there's the ripple with the bullets and things like that. It's literally what it looks like. What is happening from like a scientific standpoint in those moments?
Do you want to take a shot at first, or do you want me to go first? You want to take a shot? I have an idea, but I'll let him go first.
Well, I mean, I can just speak to my own experience with like deja vu and synchronicity, and how there seems to be this recognition of this elegant symphony of like condensation of all the energy and information and everything of a moment into this like thing that you just instantly know. I'm not sure that's kind of describing what you're experiencing, but if it's a pop-up book, that's kind of, you see the whole scene and everything. So I mean, I don't know, I think there's so much more to this than we know, and that's the whole point, is for us to, the best thing is to be an observer and to have experiences. And that's why I don't discount a lot of some of this new age stuff, though I'm very science focused, because I've had certain experiences. I'm like, I know there's something to a lot of this, so let's actually explore into it. And then, you know, it's good to be skeptical. I mean, I thought we had the earthquake coming with the lights, and it was just, it was the fireworks, right? So it's a very clear example. Sometimes.
And I was like, I hear a boom, and he was like, that's a motorcycle, but it was the firework.
You're the first person.
I was right. The way I would explain it, and you know, this new metaphysical science that I feel like is coming, that none of us have a language for yet, is it's funny, he said condensation, because it's like thermodynamics. So this liminal field of plasma, right, this more four-dimensional subtle plasma, it's the realm of feeling and emotion. So it almost like wettens or condensates or imbues more liquid into certain things, which will optically pop for you, and they'll emotionally resonate with your heart. It's the same way you bend metal, it's the same way you do telekinesis. So those things will create almost a story, and then it's like, well, who's sending those things to me? I think my opinion is, and this is for your discernment, and you take whatever resonates, your higher self is always talking to you, or God, or whoever is always talking to you. And it's about, are we coherent enough and present enough to listen? So it sounds like, and we all have our individual relationship with this. So all you need to do is, look at the signs, figure out what they mean to you, and that's what they friggin' mean. But yeah, that's the science of it, I would say. Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
Sorry, I'm really nervous, but I'm following my
It's
nudge
okay.
too.
I was wondering if you guys think that there's any connection between what we call junk DNA and plasma, and how the sun affects all of this, because there's definitely, like you said, people feel it. So.
Want me to?
We'll pass it to you so you can finish, Dana.
No,
Well, what we do know is that DNA is very, very, very conductive. Some people think it may even be superconductive, which is a material that no one's created yet. There was a thing that came out a couple years ago where they thought they did it, and it turned out to not be true. And effectively, it has a self-similar design such that it acts as a giant antenna, which they call a fractal antenna, because at the double helix stage of DNA, the very smallest stage, if you zoom out a layer, it's also still doing effectively kind of like this double helix shape, and it curls in on itself. And so that allows it to connect to a wide range of frequencies. And this is where kind of biophotons come into play, because electromagnetism, fundamentally, that double field, the perpendicular electric magnetic field is just created from the zipping and zapping of photons all around us. And sometimes it's just like a little jump within us. Usually it is, because they're very reactive. Interesting thing about that is photons will only interact with an electron that has this very specific orbital frequency to absorb that photon. So it doesn't just absorb to any electron. It has to go to the one electron that's like resonating at that photon's frequency, and boom, it'll catch it. So it seems all very deterministic in some sense. I just see it more as like a really well-tuned symphony, right, that plays together very beautifully. But DNA is one of these things that, we have so much of it because every single cell has a nucleus that's just packed with DNA. Then you have to consider all the microbial DNA that we have as well, and that's also very interactive with these fields. And then from there, it creates, it seems, more of like a larger morphogenetic field that then guide, like cellular voltage gradients, guide the flow of proteins and transport channels and ion openings and all this stuff, and cell behavior is determined by this. So junk DNA, as we call it, is this DNA that's supposedly not being used, but why would you have this whole antenna that you're not using at all? So it's really just, I think, more ignorance on our part as to what the DNA is doing, but we do know it has these conductive characteristics and these fractal antenna designs, which we have our own scientific technological counterparts for.
Would you say that maybe we just haven't reached that frequency for that DNA to latch to the biophoton?
Well, yeah, exactly. The light photon wants a specific electron in a specific orbital to resonate with. And so it also very well, like if we bring in dual star theory, and right now we're exiting Kali Yuga, well, if you go all the way to Satya Yuga, that's when we're at our closest to a dual star, if that exists. That would explain precession equinox. I think that's probably what it is, but who knows. That's going to be a lot more plasma. It's going to be a lot more light, right? It doesn't actually even have to be a star. That's a whole different conversation. But if it's simply a different quality of light coming off the star, because we have a M sequence star. It's like pretty standard and basic, but all of a sudden you get some ultraviolet star to show up. We're probably reacting way differently to everything. And if this is a cosmic cycle that we've gone through, and on that time scale of 24 or 26,000 years, it's very short in terms of evolution and geology. We've done it many, many times. Then that DNA would just hang around, obviously, until that moment comes about. This is speculation.
Yeah, I like it.
And then, the only thing I would add, because I had to Google what junk DNA was, sorry. I've never studied junk DNA. What I'm getting, what's coming to me, is it's almost like the same like feminine masculine principle, where the feminine's been more ignored as a pattern. So the junk DNA, the regular DNA would be more like an active principle, and then the regular DNA, and then the junk DNA is almost like, for instance, who's actually smarter, someone who listens or someone who talks? It's the listener, right? They're the listeners. So they have this wisdom. And it's the listener, right, that always gets overlooked too. Like the people, I'm like, hi, and then like you over there are probably the smartest person in this fucking room and you haven't said anything. So they're that, and I don't know what more than that, but that's the metaphor that I received. Yeah.
So, and the one final thing is, supposedly the ancients built a lot of these sites as we were starting to move further away from this more rarefied energy field to keep this energy coming in. And so if you can cultivate this somehow in your own space, then maybe these activations start to come in. You go to sacred sites. Nature is, I think, full of all this. I don't think the frequency or energy has necessarily left, but maybe in 12,000 years it's going to be much stronger. Who knows?
Thanks.
Okay.
Hi, my question is kind of related to hers. I've been really on the feminine energy side, and I was sharing with some of the ladies here about that stuff. So what I really want to know is, do you know a simple and profound way to sync our plasma with that plasma, like through meditation? Because I'm sick of this world the way it is. I'm sick of the evil, and I want to be able to get in God mode and disintegrate it. So
boom, let's go.
Yeah, I'll give my opinion, and then obviously as a man, you probably have good advice. But
maybe not.
Yeah, I would say a few things. Number one, if you want to, I'm going to paraphrase, but the smartest thing to do when you want to banish evil is banish it in ourselves, right? Because when we focus on ourselves and we're holograms, right? We're all capable of the same things, but that doesn't mean it's activated in us, right? Like, I'm capable of killing someone as much as, the worst person in the world. The thing is, am I judging that part of me? And once you can release that judgment and really love yourself for all the good and the bad, and if we all did that together, there wouldn't be that evil, right? So that's one thing is, I don't know if you're like me, but I judge myself very bad. So release a little bit of self-judgment with your own darkness, if that makes sense, and accepting that and loving that within you. And I don't think anyone here has any evil in them, but you know what I mean, the darkness that feels evil to us because it's like shameful. And then I would say number two, for me the biggest thing is connecting with heart energy. And maybe you've already done that, but like one way that I would actually connect with my heart energy is, and this is very simple, is through like nostalgia. So I think about the top 3 things I'm nostalgic for, and this is coming out of left field, but I love The Sims. I love Goosebumps. I love watching Goosebumps, and I love eating ice cream, right? Those things make me feel like a child. When you do literally figure out what you loved as a kid and get that and do that for a week, and you will literally be in a state of play and in your heart energy, and you will just feel like that literally connects you with your authenticity, and authenticity connects you with that plasma. They're very human things. Like, you don't have to do any kind of magical practices. But then if you also do want a magical practice, the way I at least first connected with plasma, I did something called transcendental meditation, where I focus on a mantra for 20 minutes twice a day. And the third day I did it, because it distracts your monkey mind, your logical mind, and then what's left, that plasma intelligence, right? So I'm not saying this will happen for you, but when you get in those states of bliss and meditation, what do you see? Fractals, and you feel like warm goo, your consciousness drops right in that pocket of plasma. So anytime you're not in your thought and you're in that flow, that you're in the plasma, So that's just my 2 cents. Yeah, and now whatever you say. Get in touch with your feminine.
The only thing that I'll add is that the nostalgia for sure. You just don't want to get lost in the sauce.
Yes.
Don't judge yourself for engaging maybe with like an old show again or whatever it is.
Yes.
And then also I think I've really gone out of my way to put myself in situations where the energy field around me is very strong. A great example would be like the ocean. Like, the ocean has a super strong field in it, and your body, it's not like your heart's just going to turn off, obviously, but it's also now not the dominant force. And so by putting yourself in these sort of environments energetically, and knowing that will be fine, because you can get very cold in the ocean, your energy will zap out of you. Or if you ever do any sort of deep grounding, it actually chills your body down quite rapidly. I've done some really deep grounding experiments, and that's one of these things that you do it and you find yourself booting back up afterwards. And I personally have experienced you kind of get a new software set with that, and that will be a little bit more open, and gives a little bit more confidence with, I don't need my energy field to be so controlled. right? Like in this environment with the air, there's really nothing to impede my heart field, let's say. I mean, there's all you wonderful people, and we're all creating a collective resonance. Or if you're like doing a hard workout, which is very, driven and fiery, your heart field's really going, but you can't kind of reformat the frequency of it, as I see it, as easily unless you're like just kind of sinking back into a larger frequency and discharging that energy, and then you'll be given what you need, or at least it'll be more formatted in a good way for you once you kind of boot back up. That's my own personal experience with that.
I want to say one more thing. It just came to me. I'm sorry. Because the truth is, like, we don't know what's best for you, right? We're saying our projections. I think and what we said I think are both really good. But I think the truth is, all you have to do is set that intention, right? That you want to connect with plasma. Let's say that subtle plasma, the divine feminine, the cosmic mother. Set that intention and see how it unfolds in your life. Because the truth is, you have to be in a state of negative capability where you're not grasping for it. Just like you can't stick a coin on the wall if you're trying. You have to just set the intention and flow and trust that your life will connect you with it. Whether it's meditation, whether you meet someone, whether it's mirror gazing into your eyes, whether it's this feeling of love comes over you, just trust that you will be in the right situations that cultivate that connection, and just let go and see what happens. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we won't add any new people.
So
Yeah.
the question is going to be an
We'll have to be fast.
Yep.
This is not going to be down to a science. How do you connect consciousness with plasma, specifically for people that leave their physical body? So whether they're doing astral projection or they're forced out of their body because they don't have one anymore.
Yep.
Like, how do you connect? Because I know some people say that when they're doing astral projection, they can go through walls and everything, and most people wouldn't see them, but some people would be staring at them and they know that they're here.
Yes.
So,
yeah, I can answer this quick. So that's like, think about it, our plasmoid, right, holds our consciousness. So when our consciousness liquefies, goes out of our physical body, the plasmoid carries part of our consciousness through the walls, like quantum tunnels. Like he said, even plasmoids go through walls and physical plasma, which shows a connection. So when you're in astral projection, that's the subtle plasma, that's that more like four-dimensional state, that is carrying your consciousness. And sometimes it can reflect other people's consciousness, which is maybe nothing's there because their minds aren't open. Sometimes they see what's really going on, right, if their minds are more open. That also explains NDEs. It's carrying your consciousness to other levels of reality. So yeah, I mean, that's how, yeah. Sorry, we have to go to the bonfire soon, so we're just trying to get through the hi.
And thanks for having us.
Yes.
If you could help kind of bring this to universal understanding, if we have the equation E equals mc squared, is it fair to say that plasma is the equation and can manifest itself on either side of the equation?
Yeah, I actually wrote this in my book, and I don't have the memory. Let me, hold on. You want to answer while I'm doing this, and I'll say my answer?
And I have one follow-up.
Sure. I mean, I'm no Einstein, but energy equals mass with the speed of light squared, and we've talked about how you don't create plasma without there being light now embedded in this manner through electron absorption. And then plasma can decharge by giving off light photons. So
like
you have two of these, you have all three of them now in this whole complex network, because you have energy, but then you also have light, and then you have mass. So, I mean, it's clearly, it's a very elegant explanation of what we see, and plasma wasn't really on the radar back when Einstein and some of these other famous physicists from the late 1800s, the early 1900s were around. I mean, it was, but plasma research really started taking off in like the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and then it's kind of been suppressed since then. So I just know that I think just contemplating more on the plasma light connection is going to yield a lot of insight. But I don't have a definitive answer for you.
I can't find it in my book. Let me just guess. I don't remember everything I wrote. E equals mc squared, I literally wrote, it is actually a holographic equation. So it's energy and mass, and so I call the C consciousness. And think of consciousness squared as you working with your higher self. And then think of mass as material reality and energy as plasma. So plasma equals reality, mass, material reality, plus consciousness squared, if that makes any sense. But there's ways that you can break up the equation where like, so basically your consciousness is working with your higher self to create that mass with the plasma, if that makes any sense. I wrote about it in my book, so someone find it, but I don't remember what the heck I said. Yeah. But yeah, it's good thinking, because yes.
And I guess the quick follow-up being, I think we all understand like what conscious means for us, but can you guys define consciousness in your own words?
Yes, I would love to. You want to go first?
I just think it's awareness. At least that's one huge component of it, is awareness. But it then really brings in a whole equation of God. I mean, my kind of thought of God or universe, whatever it is this creator that created a whole bunch of creators, and these creators are now seeking to understand, the creator as well. And there's this whole network and intertwined like pinging and. I think God is just as interested in.
Thank you.
I think God is just as interested in what is happening with us as we are with seeking to understand God. That's kind of my idea. So that really is just all awareness, though, right? Because you can't make an observation if you're not even looking at the thing in the first place. So, but to define, I think, is a fool's errand.
I'm gonna try. Okay, I actually see consciousness as more of a system, so I call it plasma consciousness synergy. So there is awareness, or our higher self, right? And then consciousness works on the level of awareness, on the fifth dimensional level, on the subtle level, and on our physical level. So consciousness is literally a feedback system depending on what level you're on. So yeah, consciousness is more the system where the awareness actually works through consciousness and plasma to create reality. So yeah, to me, consciousness is just a system. Yeah.
Okay.
Would you say that would be relevant to as above, so below, perhaps?
Yeah, which part? Yes. Yes.
Like
Yes. Yes. Exactly. As above, so below is like a holographic saying, but one of the as above, so belows is just like there's the physical. It's as in the physical, in the spiritual. So yes, it's the same thing. Okay.
Okay, so this is sort of obscure. I live near Deer Park Buddhist Monastery in Escondido, and I was hiking with the dog one day during the 6.7 earthquake that we had about a year ago, and I think I felt like I quantum jumped. I used to watch Quantum Leap with my grandparents when I was a kid, and then it happened like a wind. And then I heard it, but it was coming from everywhere. And then I watched it go by, and the dog ran off. And then it was so random. I have the Schumann resonance app on my phone, and then I checked it, and the exact earthquake-relevant equation was the same as the Schumann resonance.
Wow.
And so I'm just dropping that. And wow.
You want to? That's you.
The earthquake-relevant equation? What do you mean by that?
It was like the earthquake was 6.7. And the Schumann resonance was 6.7 at the time of the earthquake, because I checked it within.
Oh, I see.
So I don't know how to express.
Well, I've noticed weird things like this, and there's no like scientific explanation for that. But I also view Earth as like a super consciousness, and I've personally had experiences where it's like she works with very unique ways to like give us the download. Because the most important thing is, do you get the recognition that there's some pattern or system here? So maybe for you in that moment, it was that little synchronicity that helped you tie the two together. But in terms of the magnitude being a 6.7 and whatever you saw in the Schumann app being 6.7, that's just a classic synchronicity. Because I mean, where's the station and what's the whole, but there's so much, once you start to get into this level of energy, like the Schumann resonances and plasma and everything, like synchronicity really goes off the charts. And so you start to have universe talking to you in a much more direct line instead of it being like this super long like snail mail process. It's like, okay, God's calling you nonstop. You're like, dude, stop.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I see that.
Yeah, it's really just what I would pay attention to when that synchronicity happened where were you in the moment? What were you thinking, right? Because it was affirming something, or there was something there. There was some importance with what was going on with you. Because it's always an individual thing. We're here for an individual experience. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Boom. And our final.
This is gonna be a fun one.
Okay.
Everything about like me jumping into the spiritual, all of this has started, I think, like accepting that Earth is an electromagnetic torus field. So this comes into the question about flat Earth, and we're not really a ball spinning in space. The sun is plasma, the moon is plasma, the stars are plasma. And the stars are wandering stars, and they all move around the center of the North Pole, which creates the electromagnetic torus field. Earth is an anagram for heart. The center is the pump. The four rivers coming out of the North Pole create the currents in the ocean, and the sun pumps ampage into the ionosphere, which goes into the hydrosphere, and then which goes down to the lithosphere, which is the ground. And the ground receives a current like a grounding of fire. And that's why we have these places all across, the world that have these energetic like powers to them that across the ley lines. And what I'm trying to understand is like connect these dots together as the plasma. This is why I'm here, is trying to understand this better, because I've begun accepting everything up there is plasma, as above, so below.
Yeah.
We're covered by a firmament. Every civilization talked about that, and I don't want to really fuck people up here who may not be a flat earther or whatever.
To each their own.
To each their own, exactly. But what I wanted to kind of understand is like, I'm hearing some things both ways from both of you, and I'm trying to understand, I guess, sort of where you come out in terms of how that might be, of this all being enclosed. The creator created a system that actually has it all here. The stars, the Polaris, the North Star, all the stars wandering around, and the sun is local, the moon is local, moving around the Capricorn, Tropic of Capricorn, the equator, the Tropic of Cancer. And the plasma part makes more sense when I look at it from that point of view.
Yeah.
And the consciousness from that point of view of ours as electromagnetic, our chakras, the planet, or the wandering stars, not planets, but the wandering stars, plasma. And we are just a microcosm of the macrocosm.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of see what you guys come out, because I've heard bits coming out of your mouths that suggest maybe space, then maybe not, I don't know.
Yeah.
Where are you?
Where are we with what you just said? Yeah, what are you? Okay, I'll take it first.
Connect that to
Yeah, like what we're talking about. Yeah, I mean, I think you're just noticing, like, you have great pattern recognition. You're noticing, like, the hologram of the world. Like, Earth is literally, like, how we function is how Earth functions, which is how the universe functions, right? And with your saying, like, I've never thought of it that way, but yeah, kind of like the Earth is a torus, right? It has that toroidal field, and the sun kind of filtering into that feeds us, right? So what I would say is what really matters, I would say, for your life, because I want to service you, is what does that mean to you, and how do you apply those, in my teachings, this is just me, he'll probably say something more scientific, how do you apply those patterns to your own Earth, to yourself, and what you take, what is the sun for you and what you take in, and where's your, like, Tropic of Cancer and all those things, and like, what are those stars for you? Like, there's ways to apply that to yourself, which might really unlock, like, your own inner magic, I guess you would say.
That's why the inner magic has gotten better.
Yeah.
Kind of looking at it from that perspective.
Yeah.
Shit, life's electric, bro.
Yeah, bringing it inwards and then realizing, yeah, everything's electric and everything's plasma, because they're two of the same coin, They're both, but it's just realizing, holy shit, this is all this. But now that we know it, it's like, okay, what does that mean for me, and how do I apply this to my life to, like, create magic? But yeah, but only you can answer that, but maybe he'll have something else to say.
I can say that I haven't been to space, so I can't personally vouch for space because I haven't been there myself.
There are weird things about.
No, I personally believe that space exists and the Earth is round and all these things, but I think.
And I think both are true.
But most important, I think one reason, maybe even a majority reason why people really like what we do is that modern society has disconnected everyone so much from the totality of the universe and just this, like, cosmic connection that we share, and everything is now so minutia focused, and the clown show of the government and all this stuff. It's awful. pay your taxes and die. Don't live life. Like, so when you learn a little bit about how the sun can have an explosion on it many times the size of the Earth, and then that can create a magnetic storm on the planet that makes people go a little haywire. It like creates a sense of connection to this larger just existence that I think everyone seeks fundamentally. And religion has these certain silos and to it, and now a lot of them are all gunked up and the chakras aren't cleaned on them, let's say. Some of them are great. The teachings fundamentally behind them, from what I believe, are sound, but there's all this layering and baggage on them now. But by just studying some of these basic things that we do have some information on, like just the movement of the stars or what's happening with the sun or the moon, this helps get us way closer to that greater sense of awe and just what is than some scrolling app on your phone or something, which is where they want you, or at least that seems to be where some people want you. So that's the bigger thing for me. It helps you create this larger system that you can study, and then because there's a microcosm to it, which is you and everything else, then you can apply that. Or if you study biology, then you're the macrocosm of that. Like they're really, when I study bio and I study the astro stuff, they're so similar. It's really quite incredible. I mean, think of how your neurons are all talking to each other in your brain. There's billions of neurons, maybe trillions. I think it's billions of neurons. Well, a star, for a light photon, again, there's no time because it is a light photon. So long as a star is like, and there's quasars which blink and pulsars and everything, they're literally talking to each other in exact real time. There's no, even if it's a billion years away, it's like instantaneous from the photon perspective. The sun absorbs it, it just sends it off to some other star. So there's this whole neural network to the cosmos that's just operating at a different time scale than ours. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And that's made up of untold numbers. I mean, it's way more than trillions, because there's trillions of galaxies, so they say. And each galaxy has trillions of stars, so it's much vaster than, our brain. But it's really quite incredible. But I think it's really just how can we see part of the grandeur of the system and then have that blueprint to explain a little bit about what's inside of us.
Yes.
That's what I've also been doing too.
Sorry, one more thing. I don't like firmament. So in plasma, there's something called a sheath, and it's almost like if you picture, once again, Earth just like a cell. What's around a cell? A cell membrane is also called a plasma membrane, right? There is definitely that bubble in firmament, and I completely believe in that. And also in Kabbalah, they talk about the firmament and what is above the firmament, or like what kind of fills in that bubble. They're called the original waters, right? It's something beyond water, and what is that? Plasma. So there's all these really cool connections you probably would love with the Kabbalah and old Jewish studies. But yeah, cool stuff. And now I think we're going to close out the Q&A and go into the bonfire where all of us can be normal human freaks. And Kim, if you want to tell us how to get to the bonfire, any information we need to know. And then I just want to say on the microphone, so number one, we'll have Nick doing some cool music stuff at the bonfire, right, Nick? And then if anyone else has music stuff, they can bring it, right?
Yeah, just bring your instruments, whatever. If you wanted, like, I have just a few crystals, but some of the artwork, there's like maybe 24 of those, then come up here.
And then also I wanted to thank you guys for coming here. I love you guys so much.
And we need to do a big group photo.
Yeah.
So everyone just like...
Everyone, I'll take it. You all get down here and look at me.